Starting today, I've decided to live with my parents. You know, they're my folks, so it should be smooth sailing, right? Well, that's what I thought until my husband dropped a surprise bomb on me. Out of the blue, he suggested we move to my parents' place, catching me totally off guard. I stood there, almost in tears, shocked by his unexpected proposal. This whole thing happened right after we bid farewell to my father, who had just passed away after a prolonged illness. The funeral chaos hadn't even settled, and my husband was already packing up to leave our home, our destination, a villa my late father had left for me. To add to the surprise, my in-laws were already there, chilling in the villa. Now let me introduce myself. I'm Anna, a 35-year-old designer who's recently gained independence. 3 years into my marriage with Justin, my career is thriving, and I consider myself a well-known designer with a decent income. The apartment is in my name, and things have been going pretty well. My backstory involves losing my mother during college, and my father, diagnosed with cancer last year, just passed away. He fought a tough battle with the illness, and it took a toll on me. My father was always there for me, especially since I moved out after my mother's passing. But now my husband's sudden decision has thrown me into a whirlwind of emotions. When I got the news about my father's illness, it hit me hard. Watching him deteriorate day by day was painful, and I had many sleepless nights filled with worry. Even the doctor warned us to brace ourselves mentally. My husband, to his credit, kept asking about my father's condition, showing concern as a son-in-law. Yet, amidst all this, I find myself questioning the abrupt change in our living situation. My husband's concern for my father's health felt genuine, but there was a lingering sense that he might have been waiting for my father's passing. In the past, he had struggled with feelings of inferiority due to earning less than me. I had hoped for his support and pride in my achievements during difficult times, but his competitive and somewhat childish nature, thriving on situations where he had the upper hand, became more apparent. Despite my father's advice to prioritize our time as a couple, I felt the urgency to visit him while we still could, avoiding potential regrets later on. Over time, my growing disdain for my husband became harder to suppress. In our early married days, I felt deep love from him, and our time together was joyful. However, insensitive remarks about my father's illness and a noticeable transformation in his demeanor left me struggling to accept this change. Working from home, my husband insisted that having someone around distracted him. Consequently, I rented a small office and started commuting. While balancing work, attending to my father, and returning home exhausted, I discovered my husband's lack of understanding and felt profound loneliness. Living with him made me realize how selfishly he lived, disregarding my feelings. After my father's passing, things escalated. Despite being busy with funeral preparations, my husband seemed preoccupied with phone calls, showing little interest in helping. His words grew colder, and the grief of losing my father intensified my anger and disappointment. During the funeral, he spent a long time talking with his parents, returning with smirks that fueled suspicion from others. Cremation, interment, and inheritance procedures went smoothly, concluding the funeral successfully. Then, out of the blue, my husband suggested living with my parents from that day forward, casually stating, "They're my parents, so it shouldn't be a problem, right?" Shocked by this unreasonable proposal, I couldn't stay calm. Fueled by grief, I strongly opposed the idea, emphasizing the lack of spare rooms in our apartment and the significance of the villa inherited from my father, which held cherished memories. However, my husband seemed indifferent to my feelings, continuing to make selfish demands. I wanted my husband to understand that living in the villa would be challenging, but he seemed unresponsive. His parents had already terminated their apartment lease and decided to move to the villa. It appeared they had arranged the move during my father's funeral, likely attracted by its spaciousness and tranquil location. Their move was in progress, leaving no room for objection. Every time I expressed my opinion, my husband showed clear displeasure. He accused me of thinking only about myself, citing my frequent absences due to my father's illness and sudden calls. His words were cruel, and I felt my world darkening. He claimed my father's year-long struggle with illness was too prolonged, and that now that he had passed away, I should listen to him. His lack of regard for my father and me became evident, and I couldn't believe this was the true nature of my husband. I remembered my father's painful expressions on the hospital bed, and I knew he wouldn't have wanted me to obey my husband blindly. In that moment, all my affection for my husband vanished, and I felt the weight of disbelief. Despite my emotions, I cautioned my husband about potential regrets, and he remained determined to move to the villa. I packed a minimum of belongings, leaving our home. Seeing my few possessions, my husband looked puzzled, but I simply stated, "I'll come back for what I need later." I didn't want to exchange another word with him. The faces of my in-laws, who seemed eager for my father's passing, were painful to see. Silently, I followed my husband to the villa, the only thing I couldn't accept being my beloved place taken over by his whims. Although technically a villa, it's a single-family home by the sea, in a neighborhood where people lead ordinary lives. Conveniently accessible from the city center, it's valuable and holds childhood memories for me. Arriving at the villa, I discovered my in-laws already inside. It seemed my husband had secretly given them a duplicate key without my knowledge. The realization that they had planned to move in without anyone knowing intensified my distrust. As I glanced around, my in-laws' eyes shone with anticipation, and the sturdy furniture chosen by my father was arranged in a slightly different European style, likely to my mother's taste. Commenting on the beauty of the villa, they expressed their excitement about the move. Their enthusiastic comments, however, further irritated me. It seemed they underestimated the significance of my father's passing, viewing the villa simply as a luxurious house without considering the memories it held. My husband joined in with his inconsiderate parents, expressing gratitude for the villa and toasting to the move with beers. I sighed deeply, feeling the precious memories I had shared with my parents being tainted. Despite my emotions, I decided to hide my feelings and endure the night. The next morning, the atmosphere changed drastically when my mother-in-law screamed. I realized something had happened and approached the source of the scream. In the bathroom, I found her on the floor, clutching her foot with a panicked expression. She claimed the floor had collapsed beneath her, but upon inspection, it seemed fine. I suggested stepping on a slightly differently colored part of the floor, and as I did, the floorboard made a clear sound and slightly sunk. I explained that my father intentionally installed such traps in the house, which he called a mechanical mansion or a trick house. He was a ninja enthusiast, and the villa was his pride and joy, filled with traps, hidden doors, and secret rooms. While I, familiar with the mechanisms, had no issues, it was a different story for my husband and in-laws. I reminded them that I had warned them about the difficulties of living in the villa, a place filled with my father's memories. My husband claimed he hadn't known, and my in-laws were equally shocked. With their apartment lease already canceled, and nowhere else to go, my in-laws pressed my husband on what to do next. In the midst of this discussion, both my father-in-law and husband accidentally triggered another trap, causing them to fall. Stay in the villa. I had tried to warn them about the traps, but their fascination with the luxury of the place had blinded them to the potential hazards. My sarcastic offer for them to stay as long as they liked carried a mocking tone rather than genuine hospitality, while my husband dismissed the dangers of the traps, asserting that they would get used to it. I decided to leave them in the villa. In reality, I had no moving preparations to make. I planned to take a few days off to sort through my father's belongings and spend some time by myself to regain a positive outlook on life. After just 2 days, my husband and in-laws had reached their limit. Enjoying my time alone, I found solace away from their overwhelming presence. Before long, my father's villa became a minor tourist attraction in the neighborhood, regularly featured in local newsletters as the trick mansion hidden in a residential area. Unexpected visitors and calls in foreign languages overwhelmed my husband and in-laws, who were sleep-deprived and exhausted. Unable to manage the constant worry about traps and handle inquiries from visitors, they stumbled back to the apartment. Seeing their struggle, I suggested they all live in the apartment together, ironically pointing out their swift abandonment of the villa. Instead of serving me, I handed my husband pre-filled and stamped divorce papers. I explained that we couldn't live together, emphasizing that I couldn't forgive him for disregarding my feelings, acting insensitively, and secretly deciding to move in with his parents. He seemed indifferent to my emotions, and I couldn't fathom continuing to live with someone like that. In response to his oblivious question about our past love, I laughed and pointed out that I couldn't love someone who wished for my father's early demise. I firmly drove them out of the apartment, reminding my husband that it was under my name, and threatening to call the police for trespassing if they didn't leave quietly. They fell silent, realizing their reliance on me financially and the need to respect my decision to cut ties. The persuasion efforts began as my husband and in-laws, struggling to make ends meet in their current situation, faced financial hardships. Evicted from the apartment and unable to return to the villa, they now found themselves in a cheap, low-quality living arrangement. They often lamented that their previous apartment was better. Initially, my husband apologized for the situation, but as time passed, resentment grew, especially towards his aging parents, who struggled to maintain stable employment. Their thin apartment walls revealed daily quarrels, leading to noise complaints and strained relations with neighbors. In the end, they exhausted their savings and pension, becoming estranged as a family. My husband, once enjoying the luxury of working from home, now faced challenges in concentrating on his job. Unable to maintain his previous reputation, his sales plummeted, forcing him to work late-night shifts at a convenience store and consider multiple part-time jobs. In their frequent arguments, blame was placed on the traps in the villa. The in-laws regretted letting their son control decisions and accused each other of keeping important things secret. Despite their initial joy at the prospect of inheriting the villa, they found themselves in a situation they never imagined. The divorce, however, marked a turning point for me. I made strides in my design career, incorporating ninja elements to create unique designs showcased on social media. A major cosmetics company took notice, asking me to design packaging with an Asian touch and ninja elements, propelling my career forward. Retaining the villa as a special place filled with memories of my father, I organized tour schedules and transformed it into a space for both tourists and local children to enjoy. Media attention and online articles, translated into foreign languages, garnered support from international fans, including donations from elderly enthusiasts of my father's ninja passion. The income helped cover ongoing costs, turning the villa into a unique and cherished location. The mechanical house became a daily hub of activity, attracting local children and tourists eager to experience its legendary tricks. With precautions taken for safety, the magical place resonated with visitors, leaving them amazed and moved by the unique features. Despite the loss of my father and the inheritance leading to my divorce, the gains from transforming the villa into a memory-rich location were greater. I underwent a personal transformation, moving forward with renewed optimism and hope. In the midst of the challenges, my career continued to thrive, and the mechanical house became a beacon of positive transformation. The ongoing upkeep of this enchanting place became a community effort, with local volunteers joining in to ensure that children could explore the tricks safely. Foreign tourists, especially fascinated by features like the hidden floorboard doors, marveled at the uniqueness of the villa. Their enthusiastic comments and support added to the growing global recognition of the mechanical house. Media exposure expanded, and online articles in foreign languages further fueled interest, turning the villa into a symbol of cultural integration. The support from international fans, some even contributing from distant corners of the world, showcased the power of shared passions. The mechanical house became a bridge connecting people across borders, fostering a sense of unity and appreciation for cultural diversity. The success of the villa's transformation extended beyond its walls. The income generated not only covered ongoing costs, but also enabled me to give back to the community. I initiated educational programs for local children, teaching them about the history of ninja culture and the art of design. The villa became an educational hub, inspiring creativity and curiosity among the younger generation. As time passed, the villa's legacy grew, and it became a must-visit destination for enthusiasts of ninja history and design aficionados alike. The once struggling location now stood as a testament to resilience, turning adversity into an opportunity for personal and communal growth. In my personal life, the divorce became a catalyst for self-discovery and empowerment. I embraced the gains that came with newfound independence, focusing on my career and the positive impact I could create. The memory-rich location of the villa served as a constant reminder of my father's legacy and the transformative power of resilience. Through social media updates and interviews, I shared the journey of the mechanical house with the world. The story resonated with many, offering hope and inspiration to those facing challenges. The villa's narrative became a symbol of turning setbacks into opportunities, proving that even in the face of loss, one can create something extraordinary. As I stood by the villa, surrounded by the echoes of laughter from local children and the admiration of international visitors, I realized that the gains from this journey had indeed outweighed the losses. The villa's transformation had not only preserved my father's cherished memories, but had also become a source of joy, unity, and inspiration for everyone who crossed its threshold.